Hi everyone, and thanks for being with me. I've just been pondering about what's been happening in the world recently and wondering, what does it really, really matter? So, everything that happened in the world, look, we can look at Gaza, we can look at, I don't know, Ukraine. We can certainly think about what's happening in terms of tariffs and how that affects us individually. We can be confronted by an election here in Australia, high cost of living, and most of the things that impact us individually have nothing to do with some of those things that I've just mentioned. Um, Most of the way we choose to live our lives certainly got nothing to do with tariffs, certainly has got anything to do with the United States. It's got just about, I guess it's just about surviving, how we go about surviving in this world. Being able to find a job, being able to have a family, being able to find someone that you love and who loves you back, to be able to put a roof over your head, which is a problem here in Australia at the moment, because finding roofs to put over people's heads is nigh impossible. Um, so it's those basic Maslow hierarchy of needs things that I think we need to start to consider in greater detail. What is it that you need? What is it that I need? How do we go about meeting our own individual needs that have got nothing to do with the craziness that is the United States? Or even whether we're having an election here, like at the end of the day, what really is going to change? What is a politician, any politician, going to do that's going to make a difference to you and I? Um, you know, the most extreme you can get, I think, are really super progressive ideas that are just way out of this planet, off this planet, which are things like universal basic income, for example. What would it require in order for us to have that? What would it require for us to tax major corporations at a rate which meant that they were paying most of the services that those people who are the most vulnerable people in the world need? What would it take for us to do the things that are required in order for the needs of most people to be met? What would it take for us to decide that greed is wrong, and that where greed is evident, that is where people are making more money than they'll ever be able to personally spend, where they have successful companies beyond the success that they actually need, they're successful in their own right for whatever reason. And I'm not decrying that. I'm saying that success is good. Everybody needs to feel successful, either at an individual level or personal level, or at a business level, or at an academic level, or at a sporting level. No matter what it is, success is important. But when it comes to financial success, and people have an untold amount of money, billions of dollars that they will never ever spend, and they acquire that money because the amount of money that they have seems to be important for some bizarre reason for them, as opposed to those people in the community who just want to pay a bill, who just want to be able to afford to live a comfortable life without having to worry about all the other things that will impose themselves upon them, such as rent, such as sending your kids to school, such as clothing, such as housing, such as being able to survive from week to week, and just feeling comfortable enough with life to survive. To me, that seems to be an important ingredient. But somehow, we seem to, when I look back at the news items for the day, which I often do, and think about, what is it that I need to focus on today? What is it that I need to talk about on YouTube? What is it that my wife and I would talk about in the morning over a cup of coffee? What things are important to have conversations about? And I realised that the many of the things that I think are important are issues which are never going to be met by governments or whatever because they're too outlandish. Climate change will never be addressed in the way that it needs to be addressed. We're just going to, mosey through life, and our kids and our grandkids are going to have to deal with that problem once we're gone. It's not important enough. In fact, nothing. This is what really frustrates me. Nothing seems important enough. So what does it matter? I sit here sometimes thinking, well, I need to find something to discuss because I have a YouTube channel. I like to keep people informed. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy having these conversations. But I need to get motivated about something. I need something to kind of get me ticking over, get me thinking about things. But when I really boil it down, and I can't get excited about anything, I do wonder whether there's stuff. I wonder whether I'm so disassociated with the world that I tend to care less and less as time goes by. Because, I care about what's happening to the Palestinians in Gaza, the number of women and children that are being killed. I've cared about kids in care for decades now and worked hard to try and change that environment. And I guess over time, and I've spoken about this before, I sometimes feel like, I think that no matter how much I work on those problems, there's so much resistance that it will never be as clear as I can see it. There's situations that will never be resolved. Never. And that's frustrating. Because it's almost, in the United States over the last weekend, there were 1,400 rallies, hundreds of thousands of people overall turned up to those rallies because those people cared. And I admire them for their placards and for the speakers and for the way they protested what's happening in the US. And I at the end of that, I thought, well, what good is that going to do? How's that going to change anything? It isn't. Nothing changes until you either get enough people to vote somebody out, and consequently, obviously, vote somebody in, and that person that you vote in, are they going to be able to do the things that you think are important to you, or are they just going to do the bare minimum? And that's the thing about this coming election in Australia, is that I think Albanese and Dutton are just going to do the bare minimum. They're not going to do anything super radical. They're not going to take apart large corporations, apart from perhaps Coles and Woolworths. They're not going to take apart organisations that are ripping us off. They're not going to provide total free education. They're not going to abolish the funding to private schools and give that money to public schools to improve the public school system. They're not going to give free childcare to everybody, right? There's so many things that they're not going to do. They're not going to race ahead with renewables and get rid of gas as they should. Because the argument is we're such a small country who really cares, The minimum amount of gas emissions we put out is probably a drop in the bucket, maybe so. So I guess the question still remains, what does it matter? We can care about other people, we can care about what happens in the world. And some of us can become highly motivated about that. But everything is stacked against us. Those of us that care, it's stacked against us. And for most of us, all the stuff that happens in the world doesn't impact us. It doesn't affect you and me. It affects somebody else, but doesn't affect you and me. And it isn't until it does that we start to get involved. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Are you involved? Why are you involved? What is there about what happens in this world that gets you motivated and upset? What are the challenges that you face that you'd like to see changed? And how would you go about making those particular changes? In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.